Hey everyone, welcome to Church Tech Life. My name is Michael and this is Phil. This is a church podcast for tech guys. I want to welcome you again. This is our second episode. Hey Phil, how's it going?
Doing pretty good in the thriving metropolis of Virginia. Actually, that's not the metropolis, is it? That's the state.
It's okay. I went to public school too. We're good.
I'm from the state of confusion.
That's right. We had a busy month in February, and I'm just so glad it's over. Christmas is done, but now we get to go into Easter and all that stuff.
Well, now it's kind of like, and I'm sure everybody else is doing it, and I know you're doing it too. Now's the time where you catch up on all the projects where you didn't have time to catch up for, those few months.
No, I'm in a constant state of just pushing stuff off to the side and never getting anything done. That's why I'm paid by the hour.
All right. Well, and over by the minute, huh?
That's right. All right. Well, we want to start the every podcast with a Bible verse. So, Phil, let's get into it. What do we got?
So our verse for today is found in Colossians 3:17. Let's take a look at it. It says, "And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God, the Father, through him." I really like this because it reminds us that we are not working to please people. We are working and serving God.
Cool, thanks. Hey, Phil, you did a behind-the-scenes tour of your tech setup in Virginia, huh?
Yeah, so that's kind of what we want to focus on this week was, so we decided, just in our conversations, just to kind of start with the church here at Heritage in Lynchburg, Virginia. And so we're going to do an audio walkthrough. This is just basically our audio signal chain, our full audio flow from front of house all the way to our backstage area, our monitor desk. We've got kind of an interesting monitor desk setup and the way that kind of spans out. So kind of want to highlight that, what we're doing, how we're doing. Hopefully it'll give you some suggestions. Love to hear some of the stuff that y'all are doing. And if you've got anything that, you see that might be able to help me out even, just put it in the comments below. I'd love to read over those comments and see if maybe one of your suggestions gets implemented at my church.
Cool. Let's check it out.
We're running here at front of house a CL5. We also have a CL5 upstairs in our broadcast studio. Everything runs across Dante. So basically almost the only thing we have plugged in back here is just a Cat 6 cable that goes from here down into one of our Dante switches, which we've got switches that are down here. We have a completely separate Dante network, so it's isolated from the church's network. That way, it's the only thing that runs across it is that audio that's running across the Dante network. We also have a house network down here that we plug into the console that we use for control for stuff like iPads and internet access and that type of stuff, but that's on the church's network. So from our front of house position, this console, we've got 72 channels to it. The Dante card gives us 64, but we also added another card into the slot in the back, so that gives us an additional 16, but since we only have 64 plus 16, and we only have 72 channels on this console, then what we're using is 8 of those channels to handle some of our other Dante feeds that we have coming into the console. So that gives us our 72. Over here on this computer, what we've got up here, I usually keep a couple of my messaging app, and then my Google Messenger is usually open just in case I'm getting comments or anything from across campus that there's an issue or something that needs to be addressed or talked about real quick. So I've got that here, but I also have my chat open as well, just in case there's something that's going on that I need to be in the loop on. We change something or something happens, I've got it right there. We do have comm units. I try to stay off the comm units as much as I can as far as audio is concerned. But from time to time, we need to get that just runs to our video and to our video suite upstairs. Like I said, I've got one down here, so if something's going on that I need to make people aware of, I can jump on comm real fast and do it. We do have a flasher. I moved my flasher. Not a problem. We do have a flasher that I keep at front of house, and I kept some gaff tape across that so that it doesn't really kind of blind everybody else, but as we're standing right here, we can see it. So that way it's not a distraction to everybody else that's in the worship service, but it just kind of lets us know. So that way they can get a hold of me by comm if they need to. They can just hit the flash button and get me. We also have a comm running into our video suite All of that is all analog, so we're not on a digital comm unit here. We do just run all that analog to all the different positions. So talked about this, that has Spotify, so this is our walk-in, walk-out music. One of the things that we've done with our Spotify or with our walk-in music is I've got a Dante AVIO unit that's right here. This allows us to pipe the music into it. I do have virtual sound card on this computer as well that we use for multi-track recording whenever we need it, but this is a good little system to have just in case somebody brings in their computer for like a children's musical or something. I can just disconnect that real fast, plug it into their computer. It just works. It sees it. It's a plug and play device. We can just get it up and running really fast, so I don't have to load drivers onto a computer. I don't have to try to make things work across. It just works. I can move it to different parts inside of the building if I need to. All I have to do is just get it onto the Dante network. So I've got that AVIO card plugged in right there. This is Planning Center Online. So as we're running, I can keep a list of what's going on for our set list for all the way through for that Sunday morning. Tells us about our transitions, what's going on and all of that. And then this is SMAART. I think this is version 8. Could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. So this is a great RTA that I keep with me right here at front of house. I've got 2 microphones running SMAART. One of them is located right behind there, and one of them is located across over by one of my cameras over there. So I've got 2 different microphones that I'm monitoring off of the SMAART feed. Coming over to the side just a little bit, I'm going to move some chairs out of my way. Coming over to the side is our lighting console. I'm not going to talk about lighting in this one too much, or even ProPresenter, but one of the things that I wanted to point out was that we run a little headphone amp over to this position that comes off of our front of house CL5 console, and we pipe in the click and the guide tracks to this. So while the ProPresenter person is actually running, they have the click, they also have the guide. So our guide will say like chorus 2, 3, 4, so they know that they're moving into the chorus. So if we get into like a long music part, a refrain or something in that, we can get the lyrics up right whenever we need them to be, and we're not guessing as to when the singers are going to start singing or whatever, but we do have something that's going to kind of help them out right there. This computer is also onto the Dante network, so we output that via Dante virtual sound card. That goes over. Not only does it go to my console, but we have almost a one-to-one connection set up from down here as we do up into our broadcast suite. So what I have down here for the most part, we have up in the broadcast suite as well. One of the other things that we have are some Shure 1 rack U units. These are the ULX units. It's 4 receivers inside of 1 rack U space, so that's nice. We've got 2 of those giving us a total of 8 mics. 6 of those are used by our worship team. 2 of those are used, one of them's a pastor's mic and one of them's kind of an announcement mic that we use inside of there. But that all comes through our Dante network as well. One of the other kind of neat things that we've got with it is whenever we come into the console, whenever the mic is on, we can actually see the statistics of that. So we can see signal strength, battery strength, and we can get that information directly from this console right here. We can also adjust the gains off of those microphones directly from here from the console.
Cool, thank you, Phil. Of course, we've got a whole bunch more to do, but I've got some questions for you here that I want to ask you. To the viewers out there, be sure to like and subscribe. Every month we're going to be posting at least once a month, so be sure to like and subscribe so you get notified every time we come in here. All right, got some question for you, Phil.
Cool.
You have 72 channels going into your board. That's a lot, man.
So what's interesting is the Dante card will only give us 64 in and 64 out, but the CL5 console itself will give us 72 channels into it. So it does have 8 analog inputs on the back side of it, and honestly, I really don't even think we're using any of those analog inputs. So that's kind of where I got into that. I think you're going to ask me about this next card question, aren't you?
Probably. Yeah, go for it. Let's talk about the card.
So what was happening is we could only get 64 channels into the console, but like I said, we have 72 channels total. So We had a few of the Dante 16 channel. I think they're the my 16 cards. So that gives us an additional 16 channels to come in on those cards. So we have the 64, and then I installed the card into one of the card slots on the CL5, giving me an additional 16 channels available input. But the problem is we don't have the channel count for 16. We only have the channel count for 8 more. So the ProPresenter computer that you saw there at front of house, that also comes over in on Dante, but it comes in on one of those, I think it's 65 and 66. Whereas that way we don't have to bring it in analog into it. It comes in Dante. The little AVIO card that we're using for our walk-in and our walk-in music, I'm pretty sure that's 67 and 68. Originally, that had to come to the console via analog. We pulled that stuff out and we made it all Dante. So that gave us a full 72 channels of inputs all across the Dante network. So it was kind of a little bit of a workaround to get around some of the limitations of the CL5.
Yeah. And the cool thing is you keep it on Dante, so whatever the front of house console gets, also you get that in broadcast, and also in monitor world if you need it. That's awesome. Why in the world do you need 72 microphones? Do you have 72 mandolins on stage?
Because my worship pastor really likes me to duplicate his vocals.
Dude, I am all for that.
We've got a ton of channels. My drums itself is 16 channels just by itself. And you might go, 16, that's crazy. I've got an SPD, which is kind of a Roland. I think we get to that inside of the video towards the very end, so you'll see some of that. But that's divided out into 4 channels. I use a trigger for our kick drum, so that because our kick drum was really small, so we didn't get a whole lot of body out of it. So I actually trigger, and we have a fake kick sound that comes out, and nobody really knows it. So this will be a lot of people. If people at my church see it, they'll be like, "What?" So the other thing is I'm using triggers on my drums as well. But I'm not using them to trigger sounds. I'm actually using them to trigger my gates. So my gates are open and closed by the triggers that are attached to it. So we don't get the sounds from that. They just tell my gates to open up. So that way, whenever I hit my snare drum, the snare drum opens and my tom mics stay closed. When I hit my tom mics open and my snare drums stay closed unless I'm hitting that.
Gotcha. So not all 72 channels that are coming back to the board are actual audio channels. They're not microphones coming back. Some of them are gates and triggering other things as well.
Yeah, some of them are. And then we've got some open, some auxiliary spots because, I've got a lead guitar and a rhythm guitar, and then we've got 2 acoustic guitars, and not all of those play all at the same time. But if we do like a bluegrass week, which we did a little while back, then I needed a line for dobro and for mandolin and for some of these other instruments. So I built in some spaces in there so that I could put instruments and kind of keep them clustered together. So it wasn't like I had guitars over here on 17 and 18 with a dobro way down on 56 or something where I had something. So we did build in some auxiliary spots where I would have that stuff.
Yeah, that's really good future planning because that way when you have those special events, you don't have to tear apart your entire Dante rig or rearrange your console at all. You can just plug in, especially if you guys do special stuff all the time. That really makes sense. And then you guys have an orchestra and a choir too, huh?
We do. So we've got a string section. Our orchestra is just strings right now. We've got some very talented people there. And we've got V1s, violin 1, violin 2s, we have violas, and we have a cello section with an upright bass. So they play at the church about 2 times a month, sometimes 3 times. So a lot of setup and a lot of tear down for that as well.
But you want to keep those channels available for them for when they play. So that's
Right.
why you have so many channels, but not necessarily all of them would be used every Sunday. No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and so I have a solo violinist also every single Sunday. So even when we have a string sectional, I also keep a solo violinist then, and then whenever we don't have a string sectional, I do have a solo violinist there. So that line's used all the time, and then we almost always have a cello player up on stage as well. So that position stays there almost every single week as well. So yeah, and then the Avioms are kind of routed around so we can get that stuff so that stuff's separated out, which we'll get into that, I'm sure, in a video here pretty soon as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's cool to future-proof yourself so you don't have to tear apart stuff on a Thursday or even right before rehearsal. That makes sense.
Yeah, and that way our patching can stay the same, because I'm not the only one that runs sound at the church. I've got some really talented sound guys that have been doing it for a long time, so that frees me up to be able to, you saw that I've got a computer there where I can troubleshoot across campus. So when I'm there at front of house, sometimes I have to split my attention and I'm trying to answer a question across campus of what's going on. Sometimes that just frees me up so that I can actually go. But my other front of house guy, one of those guys that are running, they're able to say, hey, Phil, this text message came in. They need you down in this room real fast to fix something. So I'm able to take off and go if I didn't see it on my phone.
Yeah, that's a good segue. Let's talk about the computer real quick. You guys run a planning center online. Does somebody during the service automatically update to check things off during the service, so that way if you're done with song 1, you're going into song 2, they deactivate song 1 so everybody can see where you're at, or is it just static throughout?
So I know that capability exists. We don't run it that way. So I just have that monitor run in portrait mode so that I can just kind of turn it and it just sits there and I'm able to kind of follow down with it. We mirror our two services. We have two services, one at 9 o'clock and one at 10:30. So our services are mirrored, so it's the same thing on both services. The other thing that I have in there is the tap tempo. So instead of just hitting the tap tempo, I do have the tempo for each one of the songs on my planning center monitor there. So I can actually dial my tempo in per song as well. If I'm in a rush, I do have a tap there so that I can tap that in real fast if I need to.
Gotcha. You have the BPM listed per song on each of the entry. That totally makes sense. Cool.
So, and then we also have tech notes on our planning center. So it'll say like, we're doing announcements, and this is the person that's doing announcements on this microphone. This is the person. We've got 2 worship leaders per Sunday. We have a male worship leader and a female worship leader. So each one of the songs will tell me who's actually leading and kind of where all of that stuff starts. If there's any solos that are starting out the song, anything I kind of need to focus on, it's all listed right there on Planning Center for me so that I can grab it real quick. And that's why we keep it so close to us right there at front of house.
And what's cool is if there's any changes done, 10 minutes before on Planning Center, you can just push refresh and you don't have to print a bunch of copies or distribute it to all your team. You just push refresh and you have the updated version there.
Changes before service? That never happens.
Well, maybe not at your church, but a lot of our churches, man.
Oh, it happens.
Right next to that, you had the SMAART rig. Let's talk about that real quick. A lot of people don't know what that is. Let's talk about SMAART. What's that about?
So SMAART gives me it's called a real-time analyzer. So it gives you the audio frequencies of what's taking place to a specific point into the room. So I know that's a little technical. That's why I've got 2 microphones. So I've got a microphone that sits in front of house for me, so I can watch my SMAART rig and I can see that microphone. And they're actually color coordinated. One of them's purple and one of them's pink, so I know which microphone is which. And then I have another microphone over close to my one of my cameras. And that just kind of gets it away from me a little bit. So I've got 2 different reference points in the room. Now, what I like about SMAART is you're able to use up to 10 microphones inside of your room to get these. Now, these are specialized microphones. They're called measurement microphones or flat response microphones. I'm actually going to be putting a couple more out. I've got another camera platform way over on audience left. I'm going to be putting one out there, and then I'm probably going to be running one down close to where my pastor sits and have one down there by him just so that I can kind of hear what he's hearing. Because from time to time, he'll text me and just say, hey, this is what I'm hearing down here. And he honestly doesn't sit in the most optimal spot. So from time to time, I remind him of that. But him being the pastor, he probably needs to sit on the front row so he can get in and out of there a little bit faster.
That's his choice.
But if we get feedback in there, if we have anything that just doesn't sound right, then we can take a look at SMAART, we can see what's going on, and we can narrow it down to the exact frequency that seems to be causing a problem, and then we can start pulling it back on the parametric or something.
Gotcha. So you've got 3, but you can potentially have 10 microphones scattered throughout the room. And let's say, there's this one area of the room that's really bass heavy, that it gets really bassy. Or you're starting to hear some feedback over here. You're like, what the heck? What is that? It'll show you on the computer screen the frequencies that are acting up. And like you said, each microphone is color coordinated, so you know exactly which one is showing, a spike, or which one's having like a hump area that has low end buildup, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And the idea behind that is to try to get it as flat as you can whenever you're looking at it. So we do have what they call a DSP. We're going to get into that. That's digital speaker management or digital speaker processing. We're going to get into the to the DSP here pretty soon into the video. We've got that's located backstage. I use the SMAART rig about once every 3 months to help flatten the room out. Honestly, I'm a little late on it this month. I need to get it done, but a lot of things have been going on. So, but that helps me kind of balance the room. Whenever we do that, then we have far less issues with frequency inside the room as well.
Yeah, and you change it every about or you do a checkup on it every 3 months because it changes in air pressure. When you guys move your chairs, do set design, that kind of thing, those things can affect the frequencies in the room and cause more problems.
Yeah, sorry. Barometric pressure, temperature, those are two keys that always cause problems. Moisture in the air will cause problems. So that's why I try to do about once every 3 months. That way it just kind of helps me just kind of keep our system in line and keep it into sounding good.
Yeah. And then last thing is the ULXD receivers, the Shure quad receivers. Tell me about those. Those are fairly new, and I think a lot of churches can benefit from that. Tell me about those.
Yeah, I really like them, and they've got a partnership, and I'm going to call it a partnership. They've got some sort of a partnership with Yamaha. So as you saw, I can adjust the gains and stuff directly from the console, which is really cool. You can't do that on all the different consoles that I'm aware of. Sometimes you have to log directly into it, or you have to set your gain on your microphone right there. I can do it right from my console, adjust the gains right on the microphones. Plus, whenever I'm looking at the strip, you can also see battery. So whenever I'm looking at the channel, I can see what the battery levels are, and I can also see what the signal strength is directly from the console. I don't even have to look down at the units themselves. So it just allows me to keep my focus up and not down on side of some microphones. I use Wireless Workbench as well. Wireless Workbench logs into the microphones, and then that's a computer program that also sits right next to me at front of house. That also gives me a lot of that same information. And if I start having dropout, or if I start hearing something kind of weird taking place with one of the microphones, there's a spot there where you can actually record things, so you can look at things and you can see, oh, I had a dropout at this point. So it time maps it for you and all that type of stuff. So you can say, so at 9:57, I had a dropout and it lasted for, half of a second or whatever, and we got it back. So it starts showing me all that stuff. So it lets me know what's going on, and if I need to start changing things out of frequency to a different frequency, I can do that. Not while service is going on. There's another product called Aviom, which has two-way communication, which is a really, really cool product. We're just not made out of money. But those Aviom units have two-way communication, and they'll actually do signal detection, and they'll actually change not only your transmitter but also your receiver at the exact same time and create no dropout whatsoever. It's crazy. I've been behind a few of those systems before.
That's really cool, especially when you're in a frequency laden area, like in a large city or something. Having that option is really cool. What I like about your ULXDs is it's one rack unit, but it has 4 receivers all clumped together. So instead of having 4 boxes stacked up on top of each other, you got one rack unit. I love that. Also, too, they have a Dante direct out, don't they?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. They're all Dante out. So it's just Cat 6 coming out of it directly into my system, directly into my Dante network. So I'm not having to run 4 cables to front of house, and I'm not having to run 4 cables up to my broadcast mixer. I'm not having to run cables all over the place. We just have to get it directly over into my switch, and then from my switch, it just heads over to every place I need it.
That's really cool. That's really neat. I love that you don't have to have an extra box for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so all of you guys who are thinking about we're going to go into lighting or ProPresenter, we're going to probably do that in the next couple of episodes, but we're going to go in and continue on with some audio. Let's go check out the next section.
So what we're using for a monitor desk is very familiar to a lot of people. This is the Yamaha M7. One of the things that I really like about this is we've got 2 different things that are kind of happening with our Sunday mornings. We've got a bunch of singers that are out there on stage that are all on IEMs. And then we also have a bunch of musicians that are out there that are all using Aviom. So what we've done from here, and we're using the Aviom 360s. So what we've done from here is we've got signal coming across this all from our stage boxes directly to here. So this is all Dante. We output 16 channels from this console directly into one of the Aviom processors over to the side, which we're going to show you in just a few minutes. And then that gives them the channels that they need for the musicians. Now, one of the things we've done here is we've labeled out these IEMs, and we use user-defined keys for these IEMs, and we've taught our our singers how to do this. So if I'm on pack 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and hit my my Aviom 1, which is user-defined 1, I believe. And then I can make the adjustment that I need to from here for my own individual ears. Then whenever I'm done, I just press that button and then walk back out on stage and continue to sing. So every one of my vocalists know how to walk back here and then do that. Now I also have a drum mix, a keys mix, a strings mix, and a choir mix. So what that does is down here, because we had these open, is that gives me the ability, if somebody comes in and says, hey, the drum mix is a little bit off, I can come over here and hit that, make adjustments real fast to my drum mix, and then click out of that, and we're good because we're back on the top layer again. So this is how we're utilizing the M7 for kind of a dual purpose, and that way I don't have to keep somebody back here. We do have a monitor that comes in from upstairs, so I can see this image never changes. We've got a direct feed from one of the cameras that comes right to here, so I always see this. So while I'm standing back here, if I'm mixing monitors or if I'm doing anything back here, then I can see the stage at any given point in time. I can just look up and I can see what's going on. Now, one of the things that we also did was, for this console, I wanted to make sure that we were utilizing all 48 channels, but then there's still 4 stereo channels here that we were not utilizing because we're pretty much running dry, and that kind of gets into another story because we run a house mix back in there, so they pick up reverb and all of that type of stuff from their house mix. So, but I wanted the piano, the keys, and the organ to come back to this spot so I can make it stereo, so I wasn't taking up 2 channels on the console. So instead of putting them up here and then bringing them down here for everyone to mix, what we did was, this is our Stagebox right here. So we've actually, one of the other Stageboxes that I'm going to show you in just a minute, we're actually outputting the mixes here, and then we plug them in analog to the back side of this console back here, and then we bring those Omnis into the stereo patch right here. That way I could have all 48 channels plus have an additional 8 channels right here on the M7. So it freed us up and it gave us a little bit more channel space, and it let me be able to get everything in that we were looking to try to get in. So here's our wedge monitor. So this is a monitor desk, so if I need to, I can come over here. This is my volume control knob for my wedge. So if I'm actually running monitors, then I can actually hear. So whenever I do click over to hear their mix, I can cue that, and then I've got a cue mix that's right there, so I'm able to hear it. I've got this Microsoft Surface. This holds some of our software that is only Windows-based. For example, the Symmetrics units that we use for all of our DSP stuff. That all is all Windows-based. I keep not only the Symmetrics software, but also the Dante controller software on it. So if something is going on and we do need to make a change or whatever, I don't have to go all the way to front of house to do it. I can do it right here from this computer. So that's real nice. I'm very blessed to be able to have that.
Well, cool. So Phil, you have your own dedicated monitor console in the back. That's very different than having your vocalist just say, hey, yo, sound guy, I need more guitar mixing in my ears. But you have it all controlled in the back so the musician or the vocalist can go back and adjust it themselves. That's really smart.
Yeah, so, and it is twofold because we do have the Avioms on there, and the Avioms are out for the musicians themselves, so they can adjust their mix there. And all of our vocalists, they're on IEMs, the ears, the wireless ears. So they're able to walk backstage, make the adjustments they need to. And then honestly, they only have themselves to blame if it's not good. But also, I don't know if you've ever had to mix where you're mixing for someone else's ears, because they'll be like, can you give me just a little bit more of this? Oh, whoa, that's too much. Can you give me a little less? Oh, can you give me a little bit more back? And you're just playing this game of just this fader tag with so many people. So we were looking for a way around that. So that was what we came up with on the M7.
Yeah. Well, so I play guitar, and I know when I'm playing, I am always adjusting my mix, and I actually feel bad yelling at the sound engineer in the back, hey, sorry, man, I know I've asked you like 7 times, but I need more click, So that gives them the opportunity to do that and not bug anybody but themselves. That's really smart. And you do trainings with the vocalists so that way they know how to do it, and so it's not scary, right?
Yes. And then we've also got kind of a fader on there, which is kind of our easy fader or our keep it simple fader. So, and that fader is our house mix. So we actually run our house mix back to the UM7 so we can push that volume up into everyone's ear. Now, what I always tell my vocalists is you're going to push that volume up to where it's almost right. Just keep it a little bit low. And then you're going to go to the individual channels that you want, and you're going to push those volumes up to give yourself a little bit more of what you're listening to, what you're listening for. So if you want a little bit more of our worship leaders, you can push those up. If you want a little more of our piano player, you can push that up. And then they've got something that kind of mixes for them very well, but that way they can kind of hear everything, and they can hear it from the quality of our front of house console.
The really cool thing about that too is when your sound guy pushes up soloists for one song, then brings them back down for other ones, that's then reflected in their ears too, because they're just getting the mono or stereo mix from front of house. And so that way, they don't have to go back and change it every song because, oh, we need guitar for this one, but not for song 2. Oh, I need this soloist for this one. No, you don't need that. It's just automatically done. That's really smart. Also too, you kind of use it as like a fake wet effects for reverb and delay, huh?
Yeah, and then we've got some audience mics as well, so those go in there a little bit so that they kind of pick up the room, so you're not just having that isolated feeling. But I will give you a warning about the house mix. The house mix has just a tad amount of latency on it. So we always have that click track that's kind of pushing in there. So we're always telling them, pay attention to the click track because that house mix is just going to be just a hair behind. So that is one of the things that we do have to watch out for.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on to the next part.
Excellent.
So this is our 2 racks that we use for our main worship center, and they're kind of divided up into 2 different parts. I'm going to kind of show you some of that, but this is our XLR stage patches that are coming in from the stage, and then we patch it from here, hard patch, down into our stage boxes. These go 1-to-1 with the CL5 that we have at front of house. For the most part all the way through. So that way, whenever we move the drums, whenever we do whatever we do with the stage, and that kind of changes, then we're able to come here and repatch off of this, and we can still keep a 1-to-1 patch there at the console, because that lets us bring all of that stuff in. So this is the patch bay coming from the stage, and then it goes down into stage boxes. Our stage boxes come out into our Dante network. Dante switch is over on this side. It is full because our speakers are Dante, those stage boxes are Dante, and then that is distributing across to some other spaces as well. So we've got that there. This is our Symmetrics DSP. So this is what controls signal going to our speakers. This is all Dante as well. I think you're kind of catching a theme at this point that we use a lot of Dante. So coming out of here, the signal goes to our main speakers there at the house. And also we've got a couple of sides, they're really side fills just for the audience. So audience side fills. So they catch that to just kind of help fill in some areas of sound that are there. This also filters out into the subs that we have there in the worship center. We also have a place that we call the International Plaza, which is kind of our overflow area. It's a projector. We can put about 250 people out in that area for overflow. This is also sending signal from our broadcast suite down to here, which then goes out to our International Plaza so that we can have audio out there. I told you we've got IEMs that we use for our vocalist. So we've got our IEM units right here. We've got an RF venue antenna distro that goes out onto the stage. So that's how we're getting the signal out there to it from here. We come off of the stage box down here. We come out of this stage box and we run that into each one of these units stereo. So this one gets 1 and 2, this one's 3 and 4, 5, 6, so forth and so on. And the M7 is what is sending the signal to all of this. We also have Cat 5 that runs, well, Cat 6 that runs from different parts of the building back to this spot. So if we have to send distributed audio across campus to other spots, we've got it. This is also where our speakers come down from as far as the Dante connection is concerned. So our Cat 5, Cat 6 connectors are right here. Those are labeled out. I also have a couple of these that run to front of house, so I can actually send signal back to here. In fact, that's what this cable is doing right now. That will get cleaned up and actually terminated up here so that we can send that up. So that's what this patch bay does. This patch bay down here, that's not a patch bay, that's the switch. This switch right here is the Dante switch that we have for backstage. I also have one of those in front of house. I also have a Dante switch at our broadcast suite. And then we have a Dante switch in a couple of other spots as well, just for distribution. Down below is one of the Aviom, 360 Avioms. That one does not have the Dante card in it. They just get linked together. The one below that does have the Dante card in it. So the Dante feed comes from the M7 and from the CL5 front of house to come back here so that I could get more than just 16 channels to that so that we can make individual mixes with our Aviom feeds, which we're going to show you in a few minutes.
Cool. Well, that was pretty self-explanatory. Thank you, Phil.
Cool.
Man, the cable management needs some work there, buddy.
I have no comment on that.
We won't talk about that one that was just hanging out by itself.
I work at a church where we're actually using all of our equipment. That's why the management needs help.
Ouch. Oh, hey now. No, I think everybody watching has a couple racks that they don't show on camera. And we just so happen to be showing ours. We're like, oh, and just don't look at this.
Yeah.
So
that's why it's backstage.
That's exactly right. All right, shall we move on to the next one? Let's go to the stage.
Cool, let's go.
This is our keys rig. This past weekend, our keys player was also our band director. So we've got a mute switch that's down here. This is a Rolls mute switch, and they can just hit the button with their foot and be able to talk, and then that goes into everyone's in-ears. During practice, we actually run that where we run the band leader's mic into the house, just so that from the front of house position, we can also hear what the band leader's saying, just in case they have to get our attention or tell us of an issue or whatever else is going on. Or also so that we can kind of follow them, because, you know, obviously in practice, they might say, hey, let's redo that chorus again. And, you know, you typically wouldn't do that inside of a service where you're practicing it and, you know, kind of going through rehearsals. So we get this microphone piped back over to us. This microphone actually goes to the M7. The M7 takes it into a groups this mic, the front of house talkback, and our drummer's talkback mic into one channel. That gets distributed into the Aviom systems, which that one channel that goes to the Aviom systems also goes to front of house. So whenever our drummer hits a press to talk, we actually can hear that at front of house, so they can tell us of any issues going on. And then from our front of house microphone, we can talk. That goes to everyone's ears. It's all on the same channel. So if they're listening to the band director, they're also listening to us at front of house if we need them. Since I've talked a lot about the Aviom units, this is an Aviom 360. I know it's got submodels and all that type of stuff. This is the Dante version of the Aviom 360. What we've done is we've created custom mixes for all of these units. So we've got them labeled across right here. Now we're doing something a little bit different as well. So all of my units, whenever they start, whatever their instrument is, for the most part, is the first button on here. So since this is keys and the organ sitting right next to the key player, then you got keys and organs that's sitting right next to each other off of this. This says keys left, organ, the M3 left. That's actually a mix. It's not just the left channel. We actually have that as a stereo pair. Coming into this is all customized for this position across here. What I also did is we've got a house mix that comes in. This is also a stereo pair, so they can take that and they can turn the house mix up. But then I have the guide. So this is what I was talking about earlier whenever we were listening to our click track in our ears. We also have something through mulitracks playback app that'll come through and say like chorus, you know, and then you kind of count out the 2, 3, 4, verse 1. And then so it kind of guiding you through what's going on as you go through your song. So that voice is right here. So if it's loud on one song, they can adjust it down and it's just not killing them the entire time. because you might need your click louder than you want your guide or whatever else. This gives them the ability to make their own adjustments. But the cool thing that I like about the Avioms is you got this channel that's over here, and this is called, they call it a me button. So you're supposed to route your own instrument to this, and then you've got different profiles you can set up there. What I did was I routed my click right to this button. So what would happen was, as I'm playing, especially I play drums a lot, as I'm playing, I want my click really loud. But whenever I'm not playing, I don't want it as loud. So what the me button does, or this profile button, is it gives you, whenever you hit that, you've got an A and a B. So if I go over here to B, you can see how the volume dropped on that. If I come back over here to A, you can see how the volume raised. So this lets me set my click volume at one volume, and then whenever I'm not playing, all I have to do is just hit B, and I've got a softer volume. And then just before I start playing again, I hit A, and I've got that loud click, and I can jump back in and start playing again. If I'm over here for like our piano player, and I want to make an adjustment real fast for my click, it's just too loud, I can hit B, and it'll automatically drop the volume of that click. So I don't have to hit this and then that to try to adjust and that type of stuff. My click is just at basically a one button push, which I really like having that ability. The other thing that we've got a couple of audience mics, and we've got some other ways that we're bringing in some ambient stuff to all the people that are on Aviom. So I really didn't need this ambient button that was on the Aviom system. So what we do is you've got to press and hold it, and then that's here, and you can make an adjustment. Well, what that's adjusting is this group for the band mics. So this gives me the ability to set that, because honestly, whenever you're inside of a worship service, whenever we're going, you kind of set that band mic and you just forget it. So having it up here has not really bothered us. And what that did was that gave us the full 16 channels, 17 for the click, and then 18 using that ambient. So we took 16 channels and we turned it into an 18 channel feed. So I really like that. The same thing that I'm using with the AVIO for my walk-in music, we're using this for our keys rig, because we are using main stage right here for the app. So that goes down into a hub, which then goes over to that AVIO, and then that gives us the ability to pipe Dante from here all the way back there to the different feeds. So we don't even need to worry about plugging into a Stagebox or anything. We have all of that stuff locked in like that. With this one cable, we're not only sending audio, we also have the MIDI connections that are coming into it, and we also have power that's coming up. So it's just one button or one cable to connect right here for that, and then that gives us everything we need off the iPad. So during the worship service, we can do that. I also have a couple of musicians that like to bring in their own keyboard, their own computer. So, because they'll work during the week and they'll set up all their patches and stuff, and they have main stage as well. So this way, all they have to do is just unplug one cable, plug it directly into their computer. They're still getting charged while they're here, so I don't have to worry about battery dying or anything like that. And then audio is still heading over to me, and I don't have to worry about trying to do a whole bunch of changes or a whole bunch of patches. The keyboards, they're already right there. All they have to do is just update their patches whenever they get here.
Well, cool. That kind of seemed like we were drinking from a fire hose, so I want to kind of walk through some stuff, so that way it's not so scary, and it doesn't feel like we're moving at a million miles a minute. Of course, feel free to back up, rewind the video clip so you can watch it again. But
you can ask questions in the comments section down below.
That is a good point. I haven't even mentioned that yet. Yeah. So that's a good point. If you guys have any questions, please enter it in the comment section down below. We'd love to answer that for you. We'll do our best to get back to you within a timely manner. One of the questions I had for you was I liked how easy you made it for the musicians on stage. I know that there can be kind of an animosity between the tech team and the musicians, because you musicians are notoriously bad to handle, and then techs are usually socially awkward, right? And so I liked that you really strove to make it easy for them. One of the ones you did that was putting all of the Talkback microphones for the music director, for you at front of house, and another one, summing them all down into one group, so that way they're all on one channel. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Well, if I admit, so I'm going to show you behind the curtain a little bit. I kind of did it for my own benefit as well. And the reason I say that is I know that the moment any musician sees front of house talkback mic, that's the first thing they're going to kill in their Avioms.
I mean, only if it's you.
So I wanted the ability to be able to talk to people on stage. Everyone's got to listen to the band leader mic, the band director's mic. So I kind of put myself in that group just to make sure that if there's something going on and I need to get somebody's attention, they're not going to like turn my microphone down because they think they don't need me, because they're definitely going to need the band director. So it was a way to kind of bypass that.
Yeah. That's cool. And then that's cool. The other one too is the on the individual Avioms, you set up the individual instrumentalist's feed on the first channel every single time. That was cool because I know a lot of churches, what they do is they set them all up and they set them all up the same. So, let's pretend, drums on 1, keys on 2, guitars on 3, whatever. And if say, okay, I'm on bass, I'm number 3, and you have to go to this, and it can be a hassle, especially if you don't have the scribble strip on top so you can actually read it. You have to cycle through. No, you know that I'm always going to be number 1. So that's really cool. That's another thing of saying that you worked really hard to make it easy for them.
Yeah, when I first got to the church, we were set up the way that you're describing, is kind of a generic floor plan across the entire Aviom system, and we were only using the 16 channels. We hadn't hacked the system to get into that 17th or 18th side of it. So that was some of the things that I wanted to get into. The software on it was honestly, it was easy to get your mind wrapped around it after you were playing with it a little bit. But I watched several videos on it, and I rewatched and went, oh, that's what they're talking about. So it might have been easier for somebody else. For me, it just kind of struggled a little bit. The software is only Windows-based. That was one of the things that I did not like about it, because we are very much a Mac-heavy church as far as our worship and communications is concerned. But that was why that's why that Windows Surface is back there at that M7 position, so that I can get access to it. And the software for programming the Avioms is there as well. There's some quirky things about it, so if you really want to get into it, put a comment down there. If you got questions, I'll do the best I can to answer them. But that gives me the ability, if something's going weird, I can walk backstage real quick, put a flash drive in, reprogram someone's Aviom, get it out there on stage, and program it for them real fast. So yeah, we worked really hard, sent out a bunch of emails, sent out a bunch of questionnaires, talked with all of our musicians about how they wanted them customized and on programs specifically for them, and then we just came with a consensus for all of our different musicians in the different positions.
That's a very good point. You saying that you talked to the musicians and you got their input before you made any decisions. That shows just a mark of maturity. I know that it's very easy to say, oh, I'm the tech guy, I'm setting this up, so I'm going to set it up my way. And the musicians can just deal with it. I know I've been in that boat a number of times, especially when I'm irritated with them. And I just want to commend you for that, and also encourage everybody else saying, yeah, we are the tech guys, and we are the ones doing the equipment, but we're a team, especially when we have to work together as much as the worship ministry and the tech ministry does. So good on you, Phil. You earned brownie points.
Well, thank you. And I also play on stage. I know what it's like. I've played stages all over the place doing all kinds of stuff, and I can't stand it whenever I get the grumpy sound guy. And, you come into a venue, you can't talk with them, you can't say anything to them. They just don't want to hear anything from you. Every little question you have is a pain. They don't want to assist you in any way, shape, or form. And I just kind of committed a long time ago I was not going to be that guy.
Mm-hmm. One of the cool, so I'm going to jump over to the click real quick.
Yeah.
Talk about the A and B setting on that.
So it's a neat thing because, you can just push A or B and get directly to it, but it allows you to just set the two different volume controls. So when I play drums, I have the click really, really loud in my ear. So it's almost piercing in there. That way I'm staying right with the click all the way through. But whenever I'm not playing, like there's a long interlude or there's something that's going on and I just don't want to go home with a headache. So I can reach over there and hit B real fast. It automatically drops that volume down. Doesn't matter where I am on the Aviom. If I hit B real fast, it automatically drops that volume down. Whenever I hear, like if I'm going to start playing at the chorus, as soon as my guy goes chorus, then I just reach over there, hit A real fast. It gets my click automatically turned up, and then I'm ready to play right on beat one.
That's a big thing. So you don't have to go in there, select, click, and crank it. And then, when you're later on in the song, you're adjusting bass and you forget and you turn it back down again and your levels are jacked and you're in the middle of a song, that's no bueno. So having, A and B, that's just a great idea. I'm going to steal that idea from you.
All right.
And then I want to talk to you about this too. You talked about how some of the musicians, the keyboardists, have MainStage at home, and they program their own sounds. So tell me about that a little quick. Tell me about the process for that, and if you guys give any input to them, or if they just have the willy-nilly ability to just program whatever they want to, and we're stuck with the presets. Tell me about that.
We will guide them and talk with them about making sure that their programming is in line with what the song is coming across as. They can ask us questions, they can send us emails and ask us about different tracks, different stuff that they'd want. Some of them have downloaded their own patches and have their own virtual instruments and stuff that they're putting into their own rigs, and they're bringing them in. We really like it. We have that Hammond M3 organ right there, and we've got one of our keys players that has another organ that just sounds amazing. So she'll bring that in from time to time and place that up there, and we just really like it as well. So we do like to give a lot of creative freedom whenever it comes to things, but we also want it to sound right. We want it to sound with a lot of quality, and we do reserve the right to have those conversations with the instrumentalists and just kind of say, hey, this is kind of what we're looking for, and then just kind of lead and guide them. And again, it's a two-way conversation. Have the conversation even whenever they're difficult.
Yeah. Well, I think, and maybe if even not difficult, if they're human, they're going to have a different idea than you. So I think the biggest thing is communicating your vision, or the worship pastor or the band director saying, this is what we're looking for. And then having a common understanding between the two of them, the person programming the patch, whether it's the tech, whether it's the worship team admin, or even these volunteers who are setting up at home, having the understanding to say, this is the kind of what we're looking for. And then that way you're not surprised on a Sunday morning when they show up with this, square wave synth thing from the 80s. And you're like, wow, this is Amazing Grace. I don't think this is going to fit.
Yeah, we wouldn't have that on a Sunday morning because we do have rehearsals on Wednesday night. And so nothing changes between Wednesday night and Sunday morning. Nothing changes on my sound system. We keep everything from the Wednesday night practice all the way to Sunday morning exactly the same as much as possible.
Oh, let's hammer that home. Make your changes before Wednesday, before whenever your worship rehearsal is, and then don't change anything. Don't do installs on a Thursday.
No.
Don't change patches on a Thursday. If
don't
there's any,
update computers on a Thursday.
Don't do squat in between your rehearsal and your Sunday morning thing. And I'm just going to hammer that home. And then also cool, like you said, they show up with their patches on Wednesday. That way you have time to fix them on Wednesday night or even afterward if need be.
Yeah, and our worship team, they have a great policy with us where they're constantly asking for the front of house guys' sound, the front of house guys' input on what's going on. So, like an acoustic guitar can play in the exact same register as a piano, which can play in the exact same register as a keyboardist, which plays in the exact same register as maybe the bass guitar if they're dropped down. So you can get so we've got lead guitar, rhythm guitar, acoustic guitar, piano, and keys. So we can get 6 instruments that are all playing the exact same note in the exact same frequency, and it just comes across as mud, and there's no separation inside of that. So our team gives us the ability to come in and go, whoa, stop, guys. We need to separate some of this out a little bit so that we're getting some definition, some more body into the music, and we don't have everybody just playing the exact same spot.
Do you do that during rehearsal, or is that a conversation you... Okay, so that's not a conversation that you have with the worship director separately, and then he implements. That's something you actually have the freedom to say during rehearsal.
Yes, yeah, we have the freedom to say it in rehearsal. And we've got a great staff. I mean, I can't talk highly enough about our worship pastor and one of our assistants there at the church. Just great. They constantly ask for our input. The band will ask for our input. Our guitarist will come back to us and talk with us and say, does this patch sound okay? Am I getting too much here? What's going on? If I think that a guitar is over compressed from their pedals, I've got the freedom to go up there and talk with them. I won't necessarily go up and say, I want you to change. I'll just go up to them and open a conversation and just say, hey, can we open some of your compression up a little bit? And 9 times out of 10, they're very, very willing to do that.
That's because you guys have built up the respect between the two teams over time. It's not something you demanded. It's not something that was expected. It was something you respected them, and so they'll respect you. It's a two-way street.
Well, and also, talking about my front of house guys, we've got some really talented people that are running front of house. And I always say, I never want to come in there and try to get a cookie cutter approach to how to run sound where, if I'm not behind sound, they have to run exactly the way how I do. I don't want to do that because I think that kind of stifles them a little bit. So I always say we have to work inside of a box, and that box is called physics. We're never going to get 20K to go through a wall. It's just not going to happen. So that's our box we have to work inside of. What color we paint that box, that's where our artistic style comes out. So I want to make sure we're all painting with the same color, and I always want to make sure that at the end of the day, we're kind of branding our sound with quality, and you really can't sit in there and go, oh, well, this person's on sound this week. I want it to sound pretty uniform all the way across, but their approach on how to get to is very open, and we let them have that freedom. And we'll I'll come in on Wednesday nights and sit with my front of house guys and talk with them and say, think there's a little bit too much highs. Can we back some of that down? And let's kind of talk our way through that. And we kind of talk our way through it so that we have the same branding, but we just come to it at different approaches.
Yeah. All right, let's move into the drum booth.
Excellent.
All right, so I told you that from our drum position, our drum booth right here, we're actually running multi-tracks. We've got a computer that sits right here next to the drummer, so all they have to do is just hit over here to the space bar, and then that allows multi-tracks to play. So from here, it's just over. Some of the songs we actually tie together, so whenever one click stops, the other click starts in within a given period of time that we decide on. But the reason I bring that out is from this cable, we run it all the way over, back over to here. I know it's a little hard to see, but over here we've got a little hub, and that hub is plugged into a network switch, and then that goes all the way to the back and plugs into our Dante network. Over here we've got Dante virtual sound card. So we've actually got the ability to send our click and our guide down Dante, so I'm not having to run a whole bunch of cabling in here and all of that. I mean, it's drums. We already have a ton of cables in here, especially with some of our triggers. The triggers, just in case you're interested, trigger our gates. They're not actually triggering any virtual machine or virtual sounds or virtual drums. We do have an SPD Pro that's over here. We're using that. We're starting to get into that more and more, which we really like. So this is our drum booth, and like I said, our multi-tracks machine sits in here, and we fire off all of our clicks from here.
So talk about the SPD Pro real quick. What are you using that for? Are you using it for trigger like MIDI commands, do stuff on multi-tracks, or are you actually just using it for digital sounds and stuff?
We're just using it for digital sounds. Sometimes I love, if you want to look these up, the 808 kick drum, I love it. The 909 kick drum, I love it. Those two sounds are used in a lot of pop music and a lot of actually country music. A lot of people use that. And those are the kick sounds. I use the 808 snare drum. That comes a lot with like the Beastie Boys and Run DMC. They use that 808 a ton. And the 909, they actually use that a lot as well. So it gives us some of those synth sounds. We don't like to do a whole lot of stem stuff in our services. We want somebody to actually physically be creating the sound. So we don't do a whole lot of recorded stuff and then playback like that. So that gives us just the ability to add some extra texturing where it's not just on the drums, but we can hit that, that kick drum to the snare drum. We've got a tambourine on that. We've got a few cool things. I really like the SPD. I've got an unboxing video. We can probably link that down below. We were one of the first ones to get that from Sweetwater. So it hadn't even released yet, and Sweetwater was able to send that out to the church. We were able to get it, do an unboxing video, and I did a review on that. So I was really happy. Thanks, Sweetwater.
Yeah, thanks, Sweetwater. I say that on a regular basis. Thanks, Sweetwater. So that's a really interesting thing. So you're talking about how you're not against stems, but you typically don't use them. One of the things you do is you have a click, so everybody's lined up with the metronome, but you want to have everything triggered by a human. That's really interesting. Even if it is a 808 drum machine sound, or from a snare or a kick or something. But that's a really interesting philosophy that's kind of getting away in the modern church right now. We use stems. We use stems pretty heavily, and so that's a really interesting take that I like. I like that it's more human, even if it is someone triggering a drum machine. Someone's actually playing it, so you're like, oh, where's that coming from? Oh, it's that blue dude. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, our lighting needs updating in there, doesn't it?
I'm going to hammer that the rest of the show. No, that's really cool. I actually really admire that, just because it is easy to say, oh, we'll just play a loop stem, like a drum loop or something in our stems from Ableton or something. So that's really cool.
I've got a really cool sub drop in that also. So it just goes boom. It just drops. It rattles the whole place. So I have to be really careful whenever I use it. But the first time you hit that pad, it turns it on. The second time you hit it, it mutes it, so it turns it off. So sometimes I'll use it just like in a one measure beat, just kind of coming into something. I'll hit it, and then I'll hit it as I'm coming into beat one. So I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun playing the SPD.
Yeah. And so the drummer, he activates the click, right?
Oh, yeah. So that's done from that mulitracks computer that's right there. And we've got some more stuff that hopefully will be coming on the horizon real soon. We might have another video to shoot here pretty soon on that. But the drummer we set it up as a space bar. And once you hit space, it goes. Now, one of the cool things with the mulitracks app is if we're in rehearsal on Wednesday night and our worship pastor says, hey, can we take it up from the second chorus? We can go directly to the second chorus, click on that, and that's where our click is going to start at. So we don't have to start at the very beginning of the song or just have a click or something in that, but everything kind of works right in that. So our guide is still guiding us all the way through the song, even if we start in the middle of it or whatever for rehearsal. So that was a game changer for us. We really enjoyed that feature.
Yeah. Do you guys do any timecode sync from that? Having anything outside of the drum booth, say like ProPresenter or any kind of lighting equipment, is any of that synced up through timecode, or is it all just run by humans?
Right. So right now everything's run by humans. That's the video that's going to be coming out real soon. So
see
it's
that
almost
plug?
like you knew.
Well, that just means that you're going to have to come back in a month and see what we're talking about.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm having some difficulty with it. I don't want to tip my hand too much on it. I got an email from the company today, and tomorrow I'm going to be doing a whole lot of research on it to see if I can't get it going. But pretty soon, our mulitracks will be firing off our ProPresenter slides, and our ProPresenter actually fires off our lighting, and that's a video upcoming. I'm not gonna get too far into that.
Yeah. We happen to use timecode quite a bit, running from Ableton, and that Ableton fires our ProPresenter, fires our unmuting and unmuting. It changes a whole bunch of recording stuff. We went kind of nuts with it.
Yeah.
So it's glad to hear that some people are still using humans too, because so many churches are. And one of the things that can be scary, especially on YouTube, you're watching these big churches and you're like, oh, well, they're not even in the same league as me because I've got one volunteer doing all this stuff, triggering it by hand, and you see someone else saying, oh, it's so easy, you can just have all this synced up, and it's a lot harder than it looks, or a lot harder than the dude on YouTube makes it look. So I just want to let you know, Phil's doing it right now. I do it in a lot of respects too, but Phil is triggering everything by hand. Everything's still very, very human with his crew, so you're not alone. And whether the world keeps with the automated scene changes and things with a computer triggering everything, or if it goes back to humans running everything, we'll have to just see. We don't know. But it's cool to see that you're still doing that, Phil.
Yeah, we enjoy it. It gives our volunteers a chance to volunteer and serve and all of that. So it's been good for us. It's been real good for us. The other thing that we did, I kind of alluded to it there in the video, is we'll tie some of our click tracks together. So that way the transitions, like we're going out of one song directly into another song, and our worship pastor is going to say something over the top of it real fast. Well, our drummer doesn't have to hit the next song. It automatically ties in. And we can do that over give it a second and a half, and then start the click or whatever, to give our musicians a chance to change patches or whatever they have to on their keyboards or their pianists. and then we're up and ready to go for it. So that's one of the things I really like when I'm playing drums. I can reach over there, hit it one time. I've got that song going, even if we do like a 5 or a 10 second lead in before the next click starts. That way our worship pastor can, read a Bible verse or say a prayer or something. That's all right there. He's got all of that going into his ears so he can hear what's going on, so it doesn't catch him by surprise. And I really like that feature, to be able to have those stuff tied together.
Yeah. What's one of the things that's a big deal to us is the transitions between the songs, to make sure there's no awkward silences or something like that. So if you have 2 clicks lined up, one at one BPM and the other one at the other BPM, and it just keeps going from one to another, that just makes it so seamless, and it's really cool. We like that feature as well.
That is one of the things that we are talking about doing, is getting a stem that's going to play in between our songs for just continuity, to kind of tie that stuff together, allow key changes, that type of stuff. So that is something that we might actually have implementing in there, because our key players are changing their patches from song to song. So being able to have them do that, they would have to stop playing in one spot and then go. And then, as you saw, our key player also has an organ there. So if they're around over on the organ playing, then they have to turn around to get to that keys to be able to play on that, and sometimes that transition just takes a couple of seconds, so they're not able to make that seamless all the way through. So we might be doing a stem just to kind of a drone that's going to kind of lay up underneath there to keep things moving.
And what's cool is the volume will always be consistent.
Yep.
You can test that beforehand. You can test that in rehearsal as well, saying, okay, in between these two, we're going to test this drone out, and obviously if it doesn't work, you can just cut it during rehearsal.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Phil. I thoroughly enjoyed your tour of your church, man. It's cool to see someone else's setup every once in a while.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing it. It gave me a chance to kind of walk my way through it mentally and everything else, and say this is what we're doing and this is how, and gave me some perspective for upgrades and that type of stuff as well. So I enjoyed kind of walking my way through and giving you a chance to see it. Now, I'm really looking forward to seeing a lot of the changes you've done and what's going on over at Hoffmantown. So plug for our next video, because that's going to be coming up real soon, and you're definitely going to want to see a lot of the stuff that Michael has going on out there.
Yeah, and a big shout out to your intern for being the camera lady. I appreciate her. What's her name, Phil? I'm sorry.
Shannon.
Hey, Shannon, good job. Phil was in shot the entire time. Nice work. Well, cool. So again, don't forget to like and subscribe. If this helped you, let us know. We're always here to help you. So we're not just doing this for ourselves. We're wanting to do it to help you guys. So be sure to comment, say hi, and then also any thoughts you guys have, let us know. All right, we'll see you next month. I'm Michael, and this is Phil. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Have a good one.